Hey guys, Justin here. If you're like me, you've been in search of the holy grail of shoes for a really long time, and you've probably heard of Altra shoes. They make the Altra Lone Peaks, which is one of the most popular hiking and trail running shoes in the market. Today, I'm gonna be talking about a shoe that I've been checking out for the 8 months, which is very similar to the Altra Lone Peak and has the same kind of goofy toe box that those shoes have. I'm finishing off the last day of a hike in beautiful Kananaskis from Lillian Lake to Ribbon Falls, and as we go along, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the Terraventure 2 from Topo Athletic and the quality, features, specs, and overall comfort of how it is. I'm not a shoe geek, so this is really just going to be about my own thoughts and perceptions on how this shoe performs, but for reference, I've been using the Altra Lone Peak 3.5 for the last couple of years, as well as before that I was using Salomon boots. Let's quickly go through the specs. This shoe costs $120, which is the exact same as the Altra Lone Peak, and weighs 10.8 ounces in the men's size 9. It has 25 millimeters of cushion in the heel and 22 millimeters of cushion in the toe there, which leads to a 3 millimeter drop. So it's not a zero drop like the Altra Lone Peaks, but it has a very minimal drop at that 3 millimeters. On sustainability, I think sustainability is super important, and I want to be able to keep beautiful places like this accessible for future generations. So it's something I'm going to be talking about in all my reviews. And Topo Athletic has 3 pillars, and their first pillar, their number one priority, is preservation and conservation. They want to make sure they're making their products with as few materials as possible, so you're not going to see a whole bunch of extra material or bells and whistles on here just for the sake of having them. They try to make a minimal shoe in order to have less waste. They bring that concept to their manufacturing and shipping processes as well, trying to have as small of a carbon footprint as possible at their factories and shipping their product to their retailers. And while the shoe may not be made with any sort of recycled materials, I think that's really telling that Topo's number one pillar is that conservation and preservation concept. For those of you who care, the shoe is made in China if that factors into your purchasing decisions. So we've been doing some hands-on scrambling to get down to this chain section, and it's a great time to talk about features and function of the shoe. So the first thing that I want to talk about, which is very applicable to right now, is the sole. It has an EVA midsole, and I have a love-hate relationship with EVA. It's super light and isn't super expensive, but it's also not very durable, and you need to let it sit for at least 24 hours after use for it to rebound, and that's not always possible when you're on a multi-day trip. The sole on the bottom there, so that's a Vibram XS Trek sole, and I think it's stickier and better than the Lone Peaks, but not quite as good as some of the really awesome soles I've used out there, like the Vibram Mega Grip. The shoe also has a rock plate in the forefoot down here, and it's been okay. Like, it's not the best rock plate that I've ever used, but it does protect your feet a little bit, especially considering how cushy and pliable the shoe is, which we'll talk about in a little bit when I'm going through comfort. A couple things that help keep rocks and dust out of your shoe is it does have a gusseted tongue here, and then Topo also has a proprietary gator trap system, so you can loop the gators into the heel here, and then it goes and attaches to your toe right there. The shoe has this mesh upper here with PU reinforcement, and I found it to be pretty durable. The mesh is one of the weaker points and isn't my favorite material for shoes to be made out of. It does seem to be starting to fray already, and it's not quite as good as some of the ripstop shoes that I've used in the past. So we're getting midway on our day, and I just want to touch on quality and comfort quickly. So quality-wise, the shoes are pretty good. I'd say they're better than my Lone Peaks as far as durability. There's a few things that I'm a little bit concerned about, and that is something I've already talked about and alluded to, is the mesh. So the mesh here seems like it can snag and catch on things and then rip really easily. I've had a lot of abrasion and wear on it, so it's starting to show a little bit of fray. A lot of online reviews have also talked about the mesh being a weak point on the shoe, so let's keep that in mind. If you're going through a lot of areas with a lot of sticks and brush, then the mesh may not be the best choice for you. For comfort, Topo talks about 3 main things: pliability, cushion, and support. I'm just gonna take the shoe off here quickly, and I can show you what I mean with this shoe. So with those 3 things, the Terraventure 2 is rated by Topo as being medium. Medium pliability, medium cushion, and medium support. I think that the pliability is actually probably a little bit on the softer side. I find I can really kind of torque this shoe around, and the sole is not very stiff. As far as cushion, it's a cushy shoe. Like I talked about earlier, 25 mils at the heel, 22 mils at the toe, and it has a nice cushy EVA midsole to it. Sport-wise, I find it does fit that medium profile. I don't find a lot of difference in support for shoes, but that's probably because most of them are targeted towards a medium support characteristic. The rock plate that runs through the forefoot of the shoe is supposed to add a little bit of protection for your foot when you're walking on rockier or rooty ground. I find it does pretty well, but not as well as some other rock plates that I've experienced. Because it is a softer midsole, I still do feel some of the rocks and roots going through the sole. If you're not familiar with lower drop shoes, like with Altra Lone Peaks or with the Topo Terraventure 2 here, a lower zero drop means that there's less of a drop from the heel to the toe. So this is a 3mm drop, and that may take a little bit for you to get used to if you're used to a shoe that has a larger drop, like a lot of shoes have 8 to 11 millimeters of drop to them. Overall, I find the shoe pretty comfortable. It's great for nice cruisy trails like we're on right now that we're done with the more technical part of the trail, but I do find it a bit sloppy for those technical pieces. The mesh does stretch a little bit, and it doesn't provide a ton of support compared to a bit of a stiffer upper material here. As well, that pliability of the sole I find doesn't perform quite as well when I'm on more technical terrain. So if you are on more technical terrain, then the Topo Terraventure 2 is probably not for you. So that's it for comfort. I'm gonna put the shoe back on, hit the trail, and then we're gonna see you again to talk about key takeaways. So we're almost done the trail, a couple hundred meters down that way, and we'll be hitting the car, and I wanna give you my key takeaways with the Topo Terraventure 2 shoe. Like I've been doing all day, I'm gonna finish off by comparing them to the Lone Peaks. They fit the same and they cost the same price. I wear a 10.5 in the Lone Peak 3.5s, and I wear a 10.5 for the Terraventure 2s. Where the Terraventure 2 kind of stands apart from the Lone Peak is I find it's a little bit more durable. It has better foot protection with that foot plate, same amount of cushion, and is a little bit better on technical terrain. Both shoes also have that wide foot box, so if the Lone Peaks just aren't working out for you, if you want to try something else, then the Terraventure 2s might just be the shoe for you, and I'll post links in the video description where you can pick those up. Remember, same size for me with the Lone Peak 3.5s and the Terraventure 2s. For me, the Terraventure 2s have been a great cruisy trail shoe for trails like you see right behind me here, not a lot of roots, not a lot of rocks or technical scrambling. For those more technical trails, I've been using the Topo Mountain Racers, and they've been awesome. They're just that little bit of an upgrade as far as being a little bit stiffer, having a bit more protection and more cushion, and a more durable upper to them as well. And the Mountain Racers have been my go-to because most of the time I am doing more technical trails, and I'll actually post a link to my full gear list right up there with all the gear that I use day to day. And I'm gonna be doing a review of the Mountain Racer at some point in the future. So if you wanna see that and get notified, then subscribe to the channel and click that little bell. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.